iOS provides a vast array of different controls, so we can control essentially any input type you can think of. Now, I'm going to go over a couple of the most commonly used controls right now, but if you want to look into the rest, you can go ahead and look in the iOS developer library from the Apple resources. The first control I'm going to talk about is the good old button. Now, before iOS 7, the button was a little different looking, and I'm sure you guys can remember. We had drop shadows back then, and it usually had a severe gradient. Well, now things have changed. In iOS 7 and iOS 8, it's more like just text as opposed to a button. And iOS 8 focuses on the content. Content comes before everything else. So as opposed to making distracting buttons, we essentially use just text links. But we can also control almost every aspect of our buttons. They're extremely customizable, and we can put a vast array of different backgrounds or aligning the labels and stuff like that. And then we also need to keep in mind that each button has several states. And those states need to be communicated with a visual language, such as highlighted, selected, faded out because it's deselected, or what its default state might be. The second control we have are pickers, and these are essentially just the equivalent to select boxes when you're on a website. So they allow us to grab one value from a list of other values or select that value. And an extended version would be the example we have here, which is a date picker, which allows us to scroll through a bunch of different times and dates and select values for when we want. Now, we can't change much, really, if anything, style-wise on our date picker, but we can change the background color. And most of the time, similar to our keyboard, this is going to be located at the bottom of the screen, although it is possible to use it in other positions. We also have what are called segmented controls. And a segment control is literally, hence the name, a group of segments, and it needs to be at least two, that can be used to filter through different things or categorize different content. Now, we have a rule here. Each segment can only contain either a label of text or an icon, never both. Now, we could alternate between an icon and a label within the same segmented controls, but this would be a big design no-no, and we are never going to do that. And I definitely don't recommend doing that. Now, the width of a segment also is automatically based on the number of segments we have. So if we have two, then obviously they will be split at 50%. And then, of course, if we have five, then they will be split at 20%. Another type of control that we see and use very often in everyday apps and within the native apps in iOS are sliders. And obviously, these allow us to choose from a specific range of values, but they're used when the value isn't necessarily known, or we're not sure, or you're dealing with a large quantity and maybe you need to scroll to a certain percentage. The example given here is that volume is often something that we're going to hear, and we'll scroll up until it sounds about right, but we're not going to give the exact dB value because that would be highly impractical. The last controls I'm going to talk about are steppers. And steppers are used when we need to get an exact value of something within a reasonable range, I would say. And oftentimes you're going to see examples of these in shopping carts when you, or in an e-commerce store, when you can add an item and then select how much you want of that item, so a quantity, and you may hit plus until you have 3 in your shopping cart. Maybe you need to remove one, so you'd hit minus. And these are another form of segmented control. But with steppers, we have a high level of customization. We can do just about anything with these. We can make our own icons for these. We can put in custom backgrounds, and we can really make these look as customized as we want, and it's often encouraged, or at least I encourage it with steppers at least.